So Josh, tell me, at a high level, what problem do you solve for business owners?
Problem or problems?
Oh, you know what? That's a good answer. And we're going to learn more on the Loan Doctor podcast. I'm Rich Brandt, the Loan Doctor with the Brandt Lending Team. And I'm with my friend, Josh Blum, with Evolve and Thrive. And he's going to tell us a little bit about more of what he does to help business owners grow. So what do most business owners think that they need help with? And what do they actually need?
I would say that for so many business owners, they think they need help with something external. Because in small business, especially, the owner is the business, right? There's really no separating those out for the most part. And so frequently they think it's external, but it's actually internal where the work needs to be done.
There are lots of different ways to sort of get to the same destination, but everybody's path might be a little bit different because of the pieces to their financial puzzle. So I guess that's true in business as well.
But the business, the identity, the person, we are all unique, and those should be unique. Otherwise, you're going to, somebody will just copy you and they'll do it cheaper, better, or faster.
How does fear show up in people making business decisions?
Fear can be a nasty thing. Maybe it's not so much fear, but a scarcity mindset, looking at it from the framework of what if it doesn't, right? What if the results aren't?
So often how you do one thing is how you do everything.
Earn more, work less, enjoy life.
Thank you for being in my waiting room.
Thanks for having me, Rich.
Thanks.
Pleasure.
So Josh, tell me, at a high level, what problem do you solve for business owners?
Problem or problems?
Oh, you know what? That's a good answer. And we're going to learn more on the Loan Doctor podcast. I'm Rich Brandt, the Loan Doctor with the Brandt Lending Team. And I'm with my friend, Josh Blum, with Evolve and Thrive. And he's going to tell us a little bit about more of what he does to help business owners grow. So going back to that question, obviously business owners have many problems, but what are the kind of problems that you help business owners with? And I know, speaking personally, you help me with a number of my business challenges, which is great. And we'll probably talk about that as we go through this.
Just for context, he has a lot more to work through, everybody. I appreciate you having me on, Rich. Thank you. And there's probably three primary challenges business owners deal with that we help solve for. One is, you ever heard the phrase, it's lonely at the top?
Yes.
Yeah, right? Like business owners are on an island. They're isolated. Yeah. They feel very much like people don't understand what they're dealing with and their challenges. And it's hard to find somebody that they can share that with who can really empathize, understand, and has had that experience. So the first challenge we really solve for that's universal is just isolation.
Okay.
Overwork is a big one. Not overwhelm, overwork. So the phrase, I'm wearing all the hats, that's it. That's
Sure.
A typical business owner. They're involved with almost every decision in the business. Even if they have people to outsource or delegate to, they're still kind of the bottleneck in a lot of ways. So helping them figure out how to extricate themselves from the business a little bit, big challenge we help with. And then we also help with blind spots. It caught me completely unaware, totally out of left field. Those types of phrases are pretty common for business owners, and just giving them some perspective and context and a way to be aware of something they might not have ever known about. So what they don't know, they don't know. We really try to solve for.
Right. Yeah. The blind spot thing, I think, is the thing that kind of, in our time together, that's kind of the thing that's helped me the most in not looking. I remember when I called you up and I was just going out of my mind because I would get so angry when people would make mistakes, and it happens. It happens in every business, and you have challenges. And I don't know if I remember the advice that you gave me. I think about it all the time, and it's helped me kind of stay cool and calm and collected. Do you remember what you told me?
Why don't you share? Make sure I don't butcher it.
No. Okay. So what you said was, look at it whenever something goes wrong, look at it as an opportunity to do better.
Yes.
Right. The moment I stopped looking at being frustrated at the result and said, okay, how can I take this and make improvements because this happened? It changed my mindset, and it helped me start, talking to people in a way that was better, and it's helped my team. It's helped our productivity. It's really been a real godsend, and it was a blind spot. You didn't say anything earth shattering. I just wasn't thinking about it in that way. And when you framed it for me, it was super, super helpful.
Yeah, Jocko Willink, the Navy SEAL, has something that he says about challenges, which I love, which is, he said this on podcast before. When there's a challenge or a problem, his response is always good, right? Good. I'm glad there's an opportunity. If there's a challenge, there's an opportunity. It's a good thing to have a challenge.
All right. I like it, but don't be quoting other people's podcasts on my podcast, because there's no other podcast that's important.
Well, now he has to come on as a guest. Like, that's a rule. Did you know that? Now that I name dropped him, he has to show up.
Oh, that's a good point. Ooh, good. If you're on his podcast, name drop me.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So what do most business owners think that they need help with, and what do they actually need?
Ooh, that's a great question. What do they think they need help with, and what do they actually need help with? I would say that for so many business owners, they think they need help with something external. It's other people, or it's a system, or it's a process, which arguably very frequently they do need help with that, but more often than not, those are branches. It's not the root, right? You think about it like a tree. I'm talking about a symptom or a branch of something. I'm not really identifying what the underlying issue is, which is usually me. Because in small business, especially, the owner is the business, right? There's really no separating those out for the most part. And so frequently they think it's external, but it's actually internal, where the work needs to be done.
Right. Yeah. That's a great answer. That's perfect. When you first meet a client, what are some of the things that you look for to see, hey, would this person be somebody that I could help?
Probably number one, there's certain characteristics of business owners and people that we always identify. What characteristics make them good potential clients where we can help. And this isn't the first thing I look for, but it's probably the most definitive is, are they open to making change?
Right. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's somebody's not open to making change, they won't. And you see that happen quite a bit. So my partner's a doctor of psychology and a cognitive behavioral therapist. And when we started working together, we did some coaching together. And I got very frustrated, Rich, like very frustrated working with people, because I kept feeling like they would come in and they would complain about something, and you'd think they'd want to change, and they'd tell you that they'd want to change, and they give you all these cues that they want to change, and then they would not change at all, right? At all, nothing. And then a week later, you're having the same conversation, you're rehashing the same things over and over and over again. And so at one point, I said to Andre, my partner, I said, I'm just really frustrated here. What's the deal? And he's like, oh, he starts laughing. He says, you haven't figured it out yet. Most people don't actually want to change. They just want to be able to look themselves in the mirror and feel like they've done the things that they need to change. So they'll pay you to help them change, but they really have no actual want and desire to change. They're deceiving themselves, but it makes them feel better. They're still a victim, which is kind of a harsh way to look at it, or a cynical way. But I think when you work with hundreds of people over your career, there are some patterns that start to stick out from a coaching perspective. And so open to change is something not everybody is. And to me, that's a big diagnosis. You also want to understand how serious they are about what they're doing. And when I say serious, I just mean passionate.
Right.
It's important to them, right? They hold it in high esteem, and they hold striving towards a goal or a result as something really important and a priority for them. And that shows up. So we say serious, striving, open, and then I want to work with somebody that's humble enough that they will hear what's being said to them. That's not always the case. There are a lot of ego out there, and that's okay.
Sure.
But they're probably not people that we're going to be able to help if they're that challenging to get to.
Now, one of the things that you kind of said correlates to sort of the sales cycle that I often kind of refer to is, a lot of times in my business, realtors are a real important aspect of referral opportunities, because people like looking for houses. They don't necessarily like getting a financial colonoscopy. And so what they'll do is they'll look for a house. And so realtors tend to refer me a lot of clients. And there are some realtors, some of the busier realtors, that are referring with people, and referring to people that they already know because they don't know me, right? And I equate it to that comfort, right? Whether whoever they're referring to is good, bad, or indifferent, they're comfortable, and I'm unknown and uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, with business owners and change, I've got to do something that's uncomfortable, right? Because really change comes from discomfort. As it correlates from a sales perspective, I'm just kind of curious, what do you do to help change somebody's mindset to make them comfortable with being uncomfortable?
I'm thinking about the best response here.
We'll take the worst response.
Have you heard of the marshmallow test before?
No.
All right, the fascinating study, and I think it's relevant to this conversation. So the marshmallow test was done a number of years ago at Harvard, Stanford. I forget which school it was done with. They took a bunch of, I think, kindergartners, and they put one of those jumbo marshmallows in front of them.
Hmm.
They actually put two in front of them, two jumbo marshmallows, and they said, okay, here's the deal: you can have one of these right now, or if you wait maybe 20 minutes or something, you can have both of them. So 80% of the kids took the one marshmallow. One out of five took the deferral, and they waited and they got both. Well, fast forward like 20 years, 30 years to these kids being adults, and they did a similar study, and they found that that characteristic stayed the same. And what it shows us is most of us are really not good at looking forward and seeing the value of waiting for something.
Right.
We want it now, and
Hmm.
we discount the benefit of waiting. So it's really hard for people by nature, and most people by nature, to do that. I think the number one way to get people comfortable with being uncomfortable, though, is tying in the future to the present and making sure that there's a consistent tie-in, because the future is really the results that they want. It's the outcome that they want.
Right.
And so if that is clear, present, and in front of them consistently and regularly, it becomes a lot easier to take those uncomfortable steps, because it's very real and present for them why they're getting uncomfortable. And then once that begins, it becomes easier and easier, because we learn over time. And you tell me if you've ever experienced this. Oftentimes our fear about something, like, oh, I'm so concerned this is how it's going to play out and this is what's going to happen, is way overblown. And the best case and the worst case almost never come true in any circumstances. It's
Right.
always somewhere kind of in the middle, and it's never really as bad as we thought it was going to be.
Right.
And so when people start getting uncomfortable and dealing with uncomfortable things, and then they realize, oh, wait a second, it was more me just being so afraid of this worst case possible outcome that I've blown up in my head.
Right. Right.
And now it's not a thing at all. So I don't know if you've ever felt that before,
Oh, I think
experienced that.
everybody has.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay. All right. So now, as somebody who helps business owners, what's the danger of applying a generic strategy, right? Because there's a lot of people that do something similar, and they apply a generic strategy to everybody's unique business.
There's a lot of danger in trying to copy, and the difference between a mentor and coach is probably explained right in this example. A mentor can help you understand how they got to where they got from where they started. And if you happen to be starting in that same exact place and you're looking for that same exact end result, a mentor's fantastic. A coach kind of recognizes that, hey, you're starting somewhere, and the chances of it being where I started are nil, and your exact outcome is probably not going to be uh, the exact outcome that I ended up with, because what you want is not the same as what I want, because we are individuals, right?
Sure, sure.
We all have different feelings and senses. And so that idea of copying somebody's model, for example, it's not that it can't work. I think the greater risk is it's probably going to drive different results and outcomes than you actually want, and because
Right.
most people aren't clear on what they really want. If they were, they'd recognize that the only way to stop themselves from being commoditized in business is to do something truly unique. And that will protect them and build a wide economic moat around their business and their
Okay.
model.
Okay.
It'll allow them to build IP, something that cannot be copied, and it'll ultimately give them the results that they actually want, not somebody else's results.
Got it. Okay. I know that for in my business, I often talk about how everybody's financial puzzle is kind of like a snowflake.
Hmm.
And a lot of times I have people come up to me and say, "Oh, my neighbor did this, or my neighbor got this, or this happened, and this is the way my neighbor did it," which is great. And there are lots of different ways to sort of get to the same destination, but everybody's path might be a little bit different because of the pieces to their financial puzzle. So I guess that's true in business as well.
100%.
Okay.
Every situation is unique.
Hmm.
And with that said, I think there's like process that can be followed, right? There's certain processes that we can take that work really well to accomplish certain things.
Right.
And those can be universal. But the business, the identity, the person, we are all unique and those should be unique. Otherwise you're gonna, somebody will just copy you and you know, they'll do it cheaper, better, or faster.
Yeah, no, I think too many times people try to apply a generic situation or a generic response to things that don't have a generic answer. So, how much of a business's success is numbers, and how much of it is mindset?
I think that's dependent on the individual. What do I define as success? Somebody asked this at a dinner I was at to a group of people, and you heard people give all these. I hit so and so numbers, or I had more sales, or this or that. And for me personally, my response was, well, I got to take 7 weeks off this summer to spend with my wife and my kids and travel. Much more important to me as a measure of success than any specific number that I could have generated in my business. Uh, Numbers, however, to me are always a result, and you don't get to the number by focusing necessarily on the number.
Right,
You focus on the activities that lead to the number. So
right,
in sales, that might be, well, I need X amount of closed business. Well, I know it's a numbers game. I need to talk to 10 people at this value, right?
right,
If I want
sure.
to do a certain amount of production, not everybody's going to qualify. Not everybody's going to be able to buy a house or refinance. So I need to figure out what the number of people I need to speak to are. And then law of large numbers, I know what my ultimate answer will be. My focus is on the activity that drives the result, not the result itself.
Now let's talk about Ivolve. So Ivolve has three pillars, right? Talk kind of tell the audience about the three pillars because you kind of touched on it with your answer before. That last part that really resonated with me, that enjoy life.
Right.
So
Earn more, work less, enjoy life.
okay,
So great cosmic joke. You can have 2 out of 3, or in sales, we would say you can have it better, cheaper, or faster, but you have to choose 2 out of the 3, right? It's that same
right.
sort of thing. You hear that, you hear an or statement. I can earn more, or I can work less, or I can enjoy myself. There's no possible way I can have all three. That's a mindset, right? That's a context, that's a lens that we look at things through. Most people think that way because they've never figured out the solution to actually accomplish all three. Yet we have all met that person, right? We all know that business owner, that individual where it does seem like they have everything. They get to work how they want to, when they want to. They have all the money in the world. They get to do all the things they want to do. So how come they have such a special outcome and the rest of us don't? So much of it is they've figured out that solution, or somebody's been able to help guide them along to find that solution for them. You can earn more, you can work less, and you can enjoy life. It can be an and statement. And so much of what we do with business owners is help them understand the lens by which they make decisions. And then once you have awareness of how you're making decisions, you can start to shift how you make decisions, and opportunities can now become real that were never real before.
Yeah, that's it's inspiring because I work a lot. I work a lot, and knowing that you can have all three is a great goal, and I see the things that you're doing to help people get there. And even though I've got a bunch of other questions for you, tell us how do people start if they wanted to go down that road of earning more, working less, and enjoying life? What would be one of the things? What would be one of the things that you would have them do first?
we we have a really strong belief and conviction that most of us are indoctrinated in a certain way of thinking from a very young age, especially here in the United States. We all go through school. We have 15,000 plus hours of being educated in a certain way, Rich, where I am going to be measured my value, my worth based on my grades
Okay.
across a broad range of subjects: English, math, science, history, you name it. And whether or not I have success in life is predicated on, am I going to have a certain weighted average across the spectrum, right? All these subjects, because if I have A's in science and math and a C in English, I'm going to be told, work on English. You want to go to a good school, you better work on your English. You got to get that up to at least a B, right? You can't have a C in English. Doesn't matter if you have A's in math and science. That, however, in business is a terrible way of thinking. Absolutely awful, because in business, as in most things in life, the vast majority of things we're going to do, right? Like most of what we do, we're to suck at.
Right.
And we should suck at, right? Like I should not be good at most things.
Mm-hmm.
It's impossible for the amount of things I have to do in business. It's almost countless.
Right.
And so there's no way I can be good at everything. So by definition, I should be pretty bad at everything. And most people would try to just get better at what they're bad at, because that's how we've been trained. That's what we're indoctrinated into thinking. That's the mindset we have. So what we really try to get people to start with, any business owner that works with us, what we want them to do is really recognize that they have certain natural strengths, not learned strengths, right? It's not like, hey, I'm great at English because I forced myself to get great at English.
Mm-hmm.
No, I have a natural skill set. I have a natural level of brilliance at certain things. Identify what those are and put the time into learning what those are. And when you ask people, have they done this work to really figure out what their strengths are and what their natural strengths are, you probably get a response of, oh, yeah, I spent like 2 hours one time at a course. And how is 2 hours going to overcome 15,000 hours of indoctrination and another way of thinking?
Right.
Our way of saying there's an educational component of looking inside us that we're really lacking in culturally here in the United States, especially. We start there with business owners. Let's figure out what your real natural strengths are. Let's figure out what you not only are great at, but it energizes you, right? You come out buzzing after it. You ever have that happen where you're doing something and afterwards you have more energy than when you start?
Sure.
That's the type of activity and strength that we look for in business owners, and we want them to start to recognize when that's happening so they can do more of that. And that's the very first step, and that's the foundation of everything we do.
Now, one of the mantras that I kind of follow in terms of work, right? What is it that I do well? What is it that I like to do? And what do I do from a sales standpoint? What do I do that makes me the most money?
Mm-hmm.
When those things don't necessarily correlate, like, and I'll say it me specifically, right? Is the thing that I like to do and the things that I do well aren't the things that generate me the most money. How do you correlate that how do you give somebody advice like that to either, if I'm going to build my business and you have to do some things that you don't like to do, how do you sort of bring those things together?
What a awesome question and example, because anybody who is listening to this is going to probably be thinking along those same lines. In a perfect world, idealism, right? We have this beautiful Venn diagram with those 3 different characteristics, and there's this sweet spot in the middle. It's like, live in the middle, Rich.
Yeah.
Just live in the middle. And then you're like, come on, man. This
Yeah.
is life. I don't get to live in it. There is no sweet spot Venn
Right.
diagram, like perfect center here where all 3 overlap. And I think that's true for most small business owners, especially without intention. What I think is you can drive towards it, though, because what you can find is if there's things that make you the most money, but that you really don't enjoy doing, then you're probably not that good at them, and somebody's out there that's better at it than you.
Okay.
And that's what you start to look for when you start to build out your team and you start to put systems and processes in place, is if I don't really enjoy this, can't somebody do it better than me? Can't they do it faster? Can't they sit there and do it all day long when I'm about to pull out my hair after 2 hours? The answer is yes. I'm confident there is. And so who can I find to go do that so I can put my energy into what ultimately I am better at than anybody else? And that is going to drive the greatest value for the firm, because at some point you get to the point in business where being an operator, being a technician, right? Like that specific work, even if it's sales, that's not how you drive the greatest value to a business down the road. Now, up front, I think there's a huge difference between that idealism and what the reality is for most business owners. Just because we know what the end game is and what we want it to be doesn't mean we're capable of being there yet. So it's about figuring out what steps can I take today to start moving me towards that if I'm not there today.
Okay. Now, the most of the stuff you do is in Florida, right? Do you ever
Yes.
do online training or anything like that?
So Evolve and Thrive, the most of our work is peer advisory groups, which is all in person. We
Right.
we just strongly believe that there's much better results driven by in-person
Hmm.
engagement. We will do work online. However, it's not a prototypical part of the business model. So some of the work that we do that we don't necessarily market or speak to, we will do strategy intensives with business owners, and if we have a business owner that approaches us and they purely want to do something like individual coaching, which isn't our normal model, then we'll selectively take clients on like that from time to time. But it always starts with a strategy intensive, a full day strategy intensive. It's our way of fast forwarding what would be 6 months of puttering around and circling around what the real issues are. So we'll do some of those on a virtual basis on occasion, but otherwise we're hyper local, and
Okay.
until we expand geographically, we'll stay that way. We'd
Yeah.
rather serve the right people in our backyard than try to make our model work in what wouldn't be an ideal setting.
No, I like it. Be specific is terrific.
Yeah,
So,
niches make riches, right?
right, there you go. I keep thinking of different rhymes. Thanks. I don't know what you did, but tell us about the third Tuesday of every month, the meetings that you have, and what that's about.
So we're big believers, not just for our business, but most businesses, that the cleanest and most scalable approach to business is a single point of entry for all clients. Something that's processized, it's procedural. There's predictable results that are driven from that. Because once you have predictable results, then it's just rinse and repeat, fuel on the fire sort of situation. So every third Tuesday we run a monthly workshop we call the Evolve and Thrive system, where you can learn how to earn more, work less, and enjoy life.
Hmm.
Where we really work people through the core concepts and our belief system around what they need to understand as owners in order to deliver on that, and the earn more and work less and enjoy life. And really what it is, it's a decision making awareness, how and why we make decisions. And the way I open up these workshops, Rich, it's always the same. Think of the biggest, best companies out there in the world today. Who would you think of? Best company?
It's Amazon, Apple,
Amazon, Apple, Google. Doesn't matter which name you throw out there. You look at them and you say, well, how did they get so friggin'
the Brandt Lending
successful?
Team.
Yeah. Yeah, I get those answers a lot, right? Like whatever business owner I'm talking to, they're like, oh, my business, right? So what's the difference between the best and everybody else? Better decision making that leads to better outcomes consistently. So how do I get more better outcomes consistently? And it's with improved decision making. And so our curriculum, our philosophy, everything we do, Rich, is built around this idea of let's start walking you through what the filters are that you need to make your decisions through. And the first one we already talked about, like what are my peak strengths, right? What are they? From there, it's your performance, peak performance. Where do I actually spend my time? Have I done a time audit? Am I applying my strengths appropriately? From there, peaks clients and services. Am I serving the right clients? Am I making the ideal client and the ideal service the lens in which I make my decisions through, right? Has it passed through the first lens of peak strength? Has it passed through peak performance? Now is it going through peak clients and service? From there, it's like, okay, have I now made my decision based around that peak model? And all this, by the way, is designed with I love how this comes full circle. It's designed with the idea of how do we bring the long term, how do we bring the future and make it very present? And when you have those filters and you apply those in your decision making, and that long-term future, that result and outcome you want is front and center in the decision making, you will naturally work towards the result and outcome that you want. You're going to tie in the long-term goal with the present day-to-day decision making. And that is what we really try to get owners to have more awareness around. So when they leave our workshop, where it's really focused on, think about how this applies to you and your business. How are you using this filter? Are you using this filter? It's a great way for owners to understand taking these steps leads to predictable outcomes.
Mm.
And we can achieve what you want to achieve, even if you don't believe it. You think it's an overstatement. It doesn't have to be when you start applying these filters and you become intentional.
All right, I'm going to challenge my social media person to make sure that there's a link on the bottom for anybody who wants to go to your workshop. just click on the link that's going to be on the bottom. I'm confident that it's going to be there, even though I'm going to have nothing about putting it there.
All right. I
Okay.
love it. Thank
So
you.
you spoke about consistency, and that kind of, I used to say when I was younger, the difference between me and Tiger Woods was consistency. I could hit the ball every now and then 300 yards. He did it all the time. Plus, I never did it straight. But every now and then I'd get a hold of one. So if that every now and then became every single time like him, we'd have been the same.
I don't know if you've heard this before. There was a study done that the top earner on the PGA Tour and the bottom earner on the PGA Tour, and the top earner makes millions and millions of dollars a year. I think
Right.
Tiger Woods back in the heyday, so on and so forth. And the bottom earners will make like $20,000 to $40,000 on the tour,
Right.
right? Like if anything, they make nothing. The difference over tournaments is a tenth of a stroke between the
That's,
top earner and the bottom earner. It's
yeah.
unbelievable, right?
Right.
18
Sure.
holes over 3 or 4 days.
Right.
1/10 of a stroke is the difference between the best of the best, the highest earners, and everybody else.
Yeah. It's like that in business too.
So you're really close to Tiger Woods.
No.
No.
No. Not at all. There's a really big gap in consistency. So, but talking about consistency, what habits separate business owners who thrive from business owners who are stuck?
Resilience is probably the biggest one in my mind. It's how quickly can you absorb a loss, or whatever that happens to be, and process through that loss and then set it aside. What can I gain from this? Can I turn it into a positive, and can I move on? Short memory
Mhm.
is a big function here, right? How quickly am I able to shift off of feeling sorry for myself? How quickly can I focus on it as an opportunity? And am I able to avoid things like rumination? Rumination being that, like, I just keep going back to it and thinking of it over and over again. And it becomes
Sure,
very
sure.
cyclical in nature. Nasty, nasty place to be for people. So having the insight and the resilience there to be able to quickly move on from a loss is maybe the most important thing, because business is hard. It's nasty. You might not like his politics, but Elon Musk once said, running and starting a business is like staring into the abyss and chewing glass, right? And it's like, what a, like, it sounds awful. And then there's a quote from oh my god, I'm blanking on the name, head of Nvidia, the CEO of Nvidia, who said he would not do it again. He would not start the business again if he could go back in time, because it was so much harder than he thought it would ever be. It took so much more than he ever could have imagined. And the difference between these great successful businesses and business owners, because again, they're tied together, really, to me, it's resilience. It's that ability to continue going, to move on from the loss quickly, so you can take that step forward.
Right. So most of my clients, as a lender, most of my clients are self-employed. I work a lot with people who are self-employed. They've got all kinds of unique challenges and stuff when it comes to finances. They've got unique challenges when it comes to business. So I think it's important to kind of talk about these things and make sure that we're doing things to help their business be in the best frame of mind. I think it's awesome. So I appreciate that. I appreciate you sharing your insight. How does fear show up in people making business decisions?
How doesn't it show up? Maybe is a better
Yeah,
question.
yeah.
Uh, that's an interesting question. How fear shows up in people's decision making. Uh, Fear can be a nasty thing in decision making. I'll maybe reframe this. Maybe it's not so much fear, but a scarcity mindset.
Okay.
It's looking at something and, looking at it from the framework of, what if it doesn't, right? What if the results aren't? And that mindset can be really damaging to a business owner long term. When we start focusing on the negative outcomes, we're more likely to bring about the negative outcomes.
Right.
Uh, it's just where our energy and our attention and our focus goes. Ultimately, the results tend to follow. And so fear can really be about that scarcity mindset, and it can really, that's really, in my mind, what's more concerning. When I start thinking about what if I can't, then you run into real issues. And sales, this is so easy to highlight from a sales background, right? Commission breath. You heard that saying before?
No,
You've never heard
I've
commission breath?
never
Oh
heard
my
that saying. All
goodness.
right, go ahead.
People can smell commission breath from a mile
Uh,
away, desperate for the sale. I always say desperation can be smelled. Like
yes.
people can tell you're desperate from a mile away.
Yeah.
It's so friggin' obvious. And so to me, that's like a scarcity thing, right? Like if I am that reliant on my next piece of business to be closed, that is being felt by the people around me, and it's more likely that I'm not going to close the business because that's like it's being exuded, right,
Oh,
it's in the air around me. And so I don't know if I answered that question quite directly
uh,
or not. Did I?
it's okay.
That was
It's a little
that's
bit
a tough
about fear
question.
and
Yeah.
stuff. It's so one. I know that from a sales standpoint, one of the things that I've learned over the years is that people are more apt to respond to what they might lose
Ah,
than what they would gain.
yes. All right. Now you're talking my language. I so appreciate that. Uh, Daniel Kahneman, I believe, Think Slow to Go Fast. I'm butchering the title of the book. Behavioral Finance.
Okay.
Uh, Economist from many years ago. Did a bunch of studies on gains and losses. And
Hmm.
my background's all financial services, so I really geek out over this. We respond much more strongly to loss than to gains. And
Hmm.
so there's natural baked in loss aversion in every decision that we make. And there's even difference in the genders with that, by the way. Women are more
Really?
sensitive to
Okay.
loss than men are.
Okay.
So from a risk characteristic, women tend to be a little bit more conservative in risk taking than men as a gender, which is really interesting. I have to be careful here because my partner would be nudging me or poking me pretty hard. We're all on a spectrum, right? Like so my math males might have certain characteristics that they lean towards on that spectrum, and women on the other. Who you are individually is going to just depend on where you fall on that spectrum. But yeah, that idea of being loss adverse, right? The idea of, oh my goodness, this could happen as a loss is going to shape decision making. Now, what's really cool here, Rich, what I absolutely love is you could take the same scenario and the way you frame that scenario to somebody will change their response very frequently. So just the framing of how somebody approaches it. And what's wild here is this is all about context and the lens in which we make decisions. So if I am unknowingly like framing something a certain way, I am going to be more loss adverse than I would otherwise be if I just looked at it differently or it was brought to my attention in a different way. Really cool subject.
So this kind of highlights something that happens a lot in banking in the underwriting process. A lot of times, like you said, people have this mindset when you're underwriting a loan and you're following through and underwriting is the part of the loan process. For those of you who don't know, is part of the loan process where where a third party is kind of making sure that you check all the boxes, and they're looking at things and have their own ideology and stuff like that. And even when they have to ask a question, when they have to reach out and get a second opinion, the way they frame the question changes the answer all the time. And
Yes.
so one of the things that we do that's kind of helped us is make sure that we're framing the question. I'm really, really particular about how I frame the question so that I'm more likely to get the result that I want than a different result.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
And this is I think most people they took a look at their business and their life, they would start to see examples here where it's like, oh yeah, no, it's like for sure. If it's brought up to me in a certain way, I'm going to respond a certain way. Anybody in a marriage or a long-term relationship, by the way, knows this inherently. Like we know this without the like, oh yeah, if I say it this way to my spouse, they're going to respond a certain way and react to it.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
if I bring it up this way, I know what the results are going to be a little bit more likely to be.
Hmm.
It's funny how that works.
No, absolutely. So tell me, why is having the right advisor more important than being smart yourself?
I really think it comes down to there's only so much we can be smart at. We're
Blind
bet
spots.
it's our blind spots and it's our weaknesses and we can spend our whole lives trying to get our weaknesses better and move from incompetent to good, but we're never going to be great. And so by surrounding yourself with people, the right people in the right positions, right? Jim Collins talks about this with the flywheel. The great business starts with the right people in the right positions.
Okay.
Advising is the same thing. You want to be inherently aware of what your strengths are and your weaknesses. And most of us are probably better at knowing our weaknesses than our strengths.
Yeah.
Like, I know I'm not great at like some math stuff. It's just not what I enjoy. I get frustrated. Just
Well,
ask my son when he asks for help.
that's
math.
my wheelhouse. If you want, you
Yeah.
can give him my number.
All right, yeah. I'll do that. Please take over for me. It's amazing. So I know my weakness. I don't necessarily know my strength, but knowing my weakness, then I want to surround myself with people who are stronger at that, because it's going to come so much easier for them. They're going to give me insights I would have never been able to come up with on my own. Right? I don't care how many years or how much energy I put in. I will never think the way these people are going to think. And that's how it's a team-based sport. Business is not in a vacuum. We don't work alone. You can be a solopreneur. You're not working alone. Everything is relying on the people around you.
So speaking of math strengths, since we were talking about that, which is my thing.
You mean my math weakness or math strength?
My
Okay.
math strength. So one of the things that I used to do. So when I was in college, I was really good at math, and I had a buddy who wasn't so great at math. And in college, I would literally hand him my test. We would take a test. I would hand him my test. He would copy all the answers on my test. And I don't know if the teacher didn't like him, but somehow he would get a C on the same test that I get an A on.
No. Oh, really?
Yes.
That's awesome.
All right.
I don't know who this teacher is, but I'm a fan.
All right. So do you see similarities between how business owners run their business and how they run their personal finances?
There's certain behaviors when it comes to money and finances that are natural defaults.
Mm-hmm.
At its simplest, you could say people are savers or people are spenders. And you talk to financial advisors. Anybody who's ever worked with financial advisors that work with retirees, they can pinpoint this and say, oh yeah, this client, just like that. You could have all the money in the world and still buy single-ply toilet paper, right, in retirement, because you're just so worried about not having enough. You're a saver by nature.
Yeah.
And then you can have people that get into retirement and they know they're on a fixed budget and they will just keep on spending. Right. And so there's defaults that we all have, and you can never overwrite those defaults. You can become aware of them and be more conscientious of what's triggering you to go back to that default, right? That programming, but you're never going to completely get rid of it. We have something we say to a lot of our clients that's probably appropriate to bring up here. If we're seeing it here, it's happening everywhere else.
Right.
So if it's showing up here, whether or not you realize it, it's showing up everywhere else in your life. So I don't know that it has anything to do with finances as like a secular idea. I think it's systemic, right? It's all throughout. I don't care what it is. If it's popping up here, it's popping up somewhere else.
So often how you do one thing is how you do everything.
Yes.
And so, yeah, absolutely. Ooh, this is
I'm nervous now.
No,
He said
no.
ooh.
No, I said ooh. I said ooh because this is a question. Some of these questions, this is a question, how should entrepreneurs think differently about buying a home? But really, that's sort of my question.
Well, answer it for me.
I will answer it for you. You know what? I'm glad you asked, Josh. So it's challenging when you're self-employed, because what typically happens is that your affordability doesn't necessarily line up. What you can truly afford, right, in terms of a house or your housing expense, doesn't necessarily line up with the information that's on your tax return.
Right.
There's discretionary spending and things like that. And, I'm certainly not advocating somebody cheat the IRS. The IRS deserves every money they get. It'd be great as soon as they could figure out how to spend it wisely, but, so no problem there. But I think that what happens is the big thing with business owners is that they sort of have to be aware of there are more than one ways to get to a destination. There's more than one way to sort of figure out, because I have a lot of business owners who simply don't think they could qualify for a mortgage, and they do. They just don't qualify in a traditional sense.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and as long as they can afford the house, which is something that I'm going to look at, like one of the things that I do with a business owner is I'll sort of give you like a real world example. Let's say I've got somebody who comes to me and they're telling me they want to have a $4,000 monthly payment, right? They feel like they can afford that, and even regardless of what their tax returns look like, a business owner would more likely know what his real affordability is than I would, at least at that first glance,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so he's telling me that he could afford $4,000 a month, and right now he's paying $1,000 or $1,500 a month for rent, and he's been doing that for 2 years, and he doesn't have any money saved. To me, now that's where the disconnect is.
Yeah.
Right.
You said 4,000, yet
You said 4,000. Why haven't
there
you
should be
been able to save
$2,500 a
money?
month here, over
Exactly.
a year. You should have 25 grand being saved, right? Yeah.
So even though we kind of go through that non-traditional scent or that non-traditional method, I'm still going to look at this and analyze and say, does this make sense? Because my goal, my job is really to set people up for success, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I want to put people in that right situation. And so when you're self-employed, that's kind of the measure that we do is I want to make sure that whatever situation you're getting into, that it's the right situation that you're going to succeed in, just like you're going to make sure they're going to succeed in business.
You ever frustrated by the accountants that work with business owners, because so much of the focus is how do we reduce taxation, but that comes at the cost of things like being able to qualify, have income showing up on the returns. It impacts Social Security for people who are paying into, right? There's a lot of negatives to that probably show up. Do you ever get frustrated by that as a loan officer?
I don't really get frustrated by the way that somebody prepares taxes, but I do get frustrated when I see poor accounting practices. And I can't pretend to know as much as a CPA, or a really experienced accountant, but I see tax returns all the time. I know what they look like. I know where figures are supposed to be and things like that. And when you see stuff that is just crazy, the other day I received a 1065 tax return for which is a partnership tax return with only one owner. So I had a K1, and this is talking in a real technical sense. Now that we're gonna talk about IRS,
we're going down the rabbit hole, folks.
For anybody who happens to still be awake, a K1 is a form that you get on a business tax return. This form shows how much money the business made and also your percentage of ownership. Mm-hmm. Well, a partnership has to have two people. You can't be a partnership with one person unless you're schizophrenic.
What was that movie with Joaquin Phoenix and the
Joker?
Siri? No.
Oh.
He fell in love with the Siri on
Siri? Oh, I don't even know. Yeah, whatever.
He had a partnership at one. But go ahead.
Exactly right. So that's the kind of thing that frustrates me is like I don't understand how a person who has an accounting background, because it wasn't them, like how they could make that kind of mistake. It was just crazy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That was probably one of the most egregious things. Okay, if a business owner is thinking about big financial moves, expansion, real estate investment, what's some of the things that they should do?
I'd want to make sure that the business owner understood why they wanted to do what they were doing and that it was going to deliver what they wanted to get from it. You ever done anything in your life where you're thinking, okay, this is certainly going to get me what I want from it, and then you realize it's not at all what you thought it was going to be, kind of like the grass is green on the other side type of situation. Yeah. Any big decision from a business really needs to come from an understanding of, okay, is this going to materialize the way I believe it's going to materialize? Just from an understanding that it can significantly alter somebody's life, good or bad. We don't always know. But I think frequently, in order to grow, businesses need to do big things. Right. Acquisitions are a great example, and more often than not, we see a lot of people that they don't even believe it's a possibility. They haven't even thought it's possible. It's an education thing, right? They don't know what they don't know.
Yep.
And when you can get somebody to that stage where they can explore something, magic happens.
So let me ask you sort of in a different question. What do you think about leverage and essentially borrowing money, right? Because that's what
Yeah.
I talk to investors about this all the time. You can, one of the great things about real estate is that I look at real estate in a certain lens as kind of like an option,
Mm-hmm.
right? A stock option I can buy with a small dollar amount, I can hold a large asset, right?
Yes.
Now with options, those are super risky. In general, I can buy a big asset and put 20% down or 25% down if I'm doing it for investment and control this big asset.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. Well, I've got a lot of thoughts around this.
All right.
I'll start with this. This is personal thoughts, right? Like I'm not reflection of my business or what my partners might think. Uh, Apple as a company is a great example of this. They have more cash on hand, or at least a number of years ago, when I mean, 5 6 years ago, when this study came out, they had more cash on hand, I think, than any other business in the world, and they chose to release a crap ton of debt out into the market. Now, this is a company with all the cash in the world. They are there's no shortage of money, and here they are leveraging debt.
Yep.
So what does that say to you? Like in of itself, right? The best and the smartest company in the world with all the cash in the world is leveraging. They're using debt as leverage.
Right.
It's a tool.
Sure.
And tools are by nature neither good nor bad. They're tools.
Right.
If I need to screw something in and I use a hammer, that's probably a bad use for that tool. It doesn't make the hammer bad. It just means the tool's bad. One of the analogies I would use here too, that I use frequently when I'm talking to certain types of people, you're invited to a wedding and it's an outdoor wedding. You're probably not wearing heels. You might wear sneakers.
Right.
You black tie affair. You're going to wear dress shoes, right?
Right.
It doesn't mean your closet doesn't have both, and they're not good, shoes for different occasions. They're neither good nor bad. They're tools. So that's my feeling on leverage. I love your example about how real estate is in some ways no different than an option, because when you think about it financially and you turn around and say, hey, I have an asset worth $500,000, if I can earn 2 or 3% off $500,000, and maybe I'm only leveraging $50,000.
Right.
Well, what's 2 to 3% off of $10,000 to $15,000? Well, off of 50 grand, $10,000 to $15,000, that's 20+% return.
Right.
And so here I can capture the equivalent of the 20% plus return from my actual asset by using leverage. So I think there's a lot of value to that. The trade-off to that is sometimes, and this is just me nerding out a little bit, by the way, Rich, you look at JP Morgan's Guide to the Markets, and one of the worst performing asset classes over the last 20 years has been residential investment properties, because after you net out the cost of maintenance and the property charges and so on and so forth, very frequently your real return on that asset might be less than inflation. It's not always the case, but this is a generalism. If you're smart about your investment and you're being intentional and you find good opportunities, that's probably not going to be the case. Broadly speaking, people might not be so good at that, though.
Yeah, I think that's right. And like the way that you said it was really, really good. In fact, I'm going to use it, is that it's a tool. It's just a tool, and in the tool used in the right way does remarkable things. A tool used in the wrong way doesn't do anything.
Yes.
And so, yeah, no, I agree. I think that's awesome. All right. So for somebody watching or listening who's a business owner or self-employed, what's the first step they should do to get clarity on their business, to say, hey, I want to take my business to the next level? What's the first thing I want to do?
This is something that we see a lot. And I'm gonna paint a picture here to answer the question if I can. Let's say we wanted to go to California.
Uh-huh.
And we said, okay, our end result here is California. We're here in Miami, right? You know how to drive a car. You know how to turn on your car. I heard maybe the valet didn't, but you did.
Mm-hmm.
Whole nother story for us to chat about sometime. You know how to get on the highway. You know that if you take 95, you start heading north, and maybe you take 4, and sooner or later you get to California, right? Like pretty straightforward. You might not know every little step along the way, but you know generally how to do it. I think with most business owners, Rich, what we see is they think they're in Miami and they know they want to go to California, but they could be in Connecticut, they could be in Canada, they could be in China, and they have no idea where they are. And I'd say before anything, just clarity on where they are. And there's so many little things. Financials are a great example because a lot of business owners aren't naturally financially oriented. That's okay. 50% of business owners, by the way, non college educated. Again, okay, nothing wrong with that. But you ask somebody what the cost of client acquisition is, right? Like what their CAC is. They might have no clue what that is. Right? They don't know where they are.
Right.
But I'd say the analogy is probably a lot worse than that. It would be like you ever see those films of somebody in the rainforest, like those tribes of people that have never had exposure to other people, right?
Yes.
Imagine one of them getting in a car.
Right.
Like forget getting on the highway. They don't even know how to turn the car on, put it in reverse, get out of the driveway, right? It's so far. And it sounds crazy, but I think for most business owners, that's how unaware they are of where they are today. They don't even know how to turn on the car, let alone that they're in Miami or they're in Connecticut or wherever it happens to be. So they need to start with a hyper awareness of where they are before they can start to get to go where they need to go. And that's why when we do individual coaching, for example, it's all strategy focused first, because we need to really make sure we understand where the business is today, and then they understand that. And if there's a disconnect, which often there is, bridge that disconnect first.
All right. So I'm going to say if you're self-employed and you want to earn more, work less, and enjoy life, he's Josh Blum. And if you're self-employed and you want to know what your mortgage roadmap might look like, I'm Rich Brandt, the loan doctor with the Brandt Lending Team. Thank you for being in my waiting room.
Thanks for having me, Rich.
Thanks.
Pleasure.